What if the most unassuming person in your life held the most dangerous secret? Imagine a ruthless mafia boss, ruling an empire of shadows, only to discover his quiet, diligent maid isn't just dusting his secrets but hiding her own explosive past. You won't believe what happens when her true identity is revealed. Thank you for sticking around with me, and welcome back, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. The city of Manhattan didn't sleep, but it certainly knew how to hold its breath when Vincent DeLuca walked into a room. Vincent stood 40 stories up in the penthouse of the DeLuca Tower, a glass needle piercing the smog and ambition of New York City. Below him, the streets were veins of molten gold, traffic bleeding into the arteries of the boroughs. From this height, the people were invisible, which was exactly how Vincent preferred them. He was a king whose kingdom was half legitimate real estate and half soaked in quiet blood, a machine lubricated by fear, loyalty, and the occasional construction site mishap that the police were paid handsomely to ignore. He swirled the amber liquid in his crystal glass, watching the reflection of the room behind him. It was a fortress of mahogany and leather, smelling of cigar smoke and old money. "The new girl starts tomorrow," a gravelly voice said from the doorway. Vincent didn't turn. He knew the footsteps of his consigliere Lorenzo better than he knew the beat of his own heart. Lorenzo was 60, built like a retired boxer who had refused to let his muscles turn to fat, and he was the only man alive allowed to interrupt Vincent's brooding. "Background check?" Vincent asked, his voice low, scratching against the silence. "Clean." "Too clean," Lorenzo replied, stepping into the room and placing a manila folder on the desk. "Name is Ariana Brooks, 28 years old. Worked in D.C. for a few years at high-end hotels. Moved here 6 months ago. No debts, no ex-husbands, no criminal record. She pays her taxes early." Vincent turned then, his pale blue eyes narrowing. He was a man of sharp angles and expensive tailoring, his skin pale against the charcoal of his suit. "I don't like clean, Lorenzo. Clean usually means they're hiding the dirt under the rug." "She's a maid, Vincent, not a button man. We need someone. The last one, well, you know." Vincent sighed. The last maid had possessed a nervous tic that involved rearranging his liquor cabinet alphabetically. It had driven him nearly to madness before he fired her. He needed a ghost. Someone who could polish the marble until it gleamed but remain unseen. Someone who wouldn't ask why a man came to the service entrance at 3 a.m. bleeding from a gunshot wound. "Bring her in tomorrow," Vincent said, downing the rest of his whiskey. "But keep an eye on her. If she so much as looks at the safe, she's gone." Ariana Brooks arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. When she stepped out of the service elevator, the air in the penthouse seemed to shift. She was a striking woman, black and beautiful in a way that felt deliberate, like a statue carved from obsidian and grace. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, immaculate bun, revealing the high arch of her cheekbones and eyes that were dark, intelligent, and unreadable. Her uniform was simple, black trousers and a crisp white blouse, but she wore it like it was couture. Vincent was waiting in the foyer, flanked by Lorenzo and 2 of his security detail. He wanted to intimidate her. He wanted to see if she would flinch. "Mr. DeLuca," she said. Her voice was smooth, a contralto that didn't waver. She didn't look at the floor. She didn't look at the guards. She looked him dead in the eye. "Ms. Brooks," Vincent replied, stepping forward. "You understand the rules of this house?" "Discretion, efficiency, and silence," she recited. "I am to clean, not to curate. I am to organize, not to overhaul. And I am to ignore anything that does not pertain to the maintenance of the household." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "You memorized the NDA?" "I read it. Once was enough." There was something about her stance that bothered him. It was too perfect. Her feet were shoulder-width apart, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, her spine a plumb line of discipline. She didn't fidget. Most civilians fidgeted in front of a man like Vincent. They shifted their weight, touched their face, and looked for an exit. Ariana Brooks looked like she was waiting for a bus. "You're overqualified," Vincent said bluntly. "You speak 3 languages, according to your resume. Why are you scrubbing floors?" A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "I find order soothing, Mr. DeLuca. The world is chaotic. Cleaning. It makes things right. Besides, the pay is excellent." Vincent studied her for a long moment, searching for the lie. He couldn't find one. "Lorenzo will show you the quarters. Don't go into the East Wing without permission." "Understood, sir." She nodded once, a sharp dip of her chin, and followed the consigliere down the hall. Her walk was fluid and silent. She moved like water. "Boss," one of the guards muttered. "She gives me the creeps." "She's just a maid, Tony," Vincent muttered, though he didn't quite believe it himself. Just a maid. For 3 weeks, Ariana was the perfect employee. She was efficient in a way that bordered on supernatural. When Vincent left a mess of papers on his desk, he would return to find them stacked in perfect alignment, edges parallel to the table. When he dropped a jacket on a chair, it would be hanging in the closet, steam-pressed, before he had even poured a drink. She was invisible, yet her presence was felt in the terrifying symmetry of the household. The other staff, the cook, the driver, and the cleaning crew, kept their distance. "She doesn't talk," the cook whispered to Vincent one evening while serving dinner. "She just works. Like a machine. I asked her if she had family, and she just looked at me until I stopped talking." Vincent didn't care about her social skills. He cared that his house was spotless and that she hadn't stolen anything. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being observed. Sometimes he would look up from his work in the study and find her dusting in the corner, her back to him, yet he felt distinctly like he was the one being watched. Then came Thursday. In Vincent's world, trouble always happened on Thursdays. Mondays were for business, Fridays were for payoffs, but Thursdays were when the universe liked to test his patience. Vincent had to leave the penthouse early for a sit-down with the Irish mob in Hell's Kitchen. It was a delicate meeting, one that required his full attention and his entire primary security team. He left the penthouse at 7 p.m., leaving the mansion quiet. Ariana stayed behind to clean the library. The penthouse was silent, the kind of heavy silence that money buys. The thick carpets absorbed sound. The triple-paned windows held back the city's scream. Ariana was polishing the mahogany banister of the library's upper level. She moved rhythmically, the cloth gliding over the wood. Click. It was a soft sound. A metallic engagement of a lock being forced. Ariana didn't freeze. She didn't gasp. She simply stopped moving her hand. Her head tilted slightly to the left, her eyes shifting toward the terrace doors on the far side of the room. The lock on the heavy glass door gave way. A shadow slipped inside. He was dressed in black, a ski mask pulled over his face, moving with the desperate energy of an amateur. He stumbled slightly as he crossed the threshold, his boots squeaking on the parquet floor. He held a gun, but his grip was loose, his finger hovering dangerously close to the trigger guard. "Where is it?" the intruder hissed, swinging the gun wildly around the empty room. He hadn't looked up yet. Ariana sighed. It was a deep, long, disappointed sound, the sound of a mother realizing her child had tracked mud onto a freshly mopped floor. She set the polish and the cloth down on the railing. The intruder's head snapped up. He saw her standing on the balcony, looking down at him with an expression of mild annoyance. "The safe!" he shouted, pointing the gun up at her. "Tell me where the safe is, or I swear to God." "You're tracking dirt on my floor," Ariana said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Are you deaf, lady? Get down here." Ariana placed a hand on the railing and vaulted over it. She didn't climb down. She didn't take the stairs. She vaulted a 15-foot drop, landing in a silent crouch like a jungle cat. The intruder flinched, stepping back. "What the?" he charged, panic overriding his plan. Ariana moved. To an untrained eye, it would have been a blur. To a pro, it was poetry. She sidestepped his rush, her left hand snapping out to catch his wrist. She twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. Before he could scream, she swept his legs. He hit the ground hard, the air leaving his lungs in a wheeze. Ariana didn't stop. She spun, grabbing his arm and wrenching it behind his back, applying just enough pressure to the rotator cuff to immobilize him without snapping the bone. Yet, she placed her knee in the center of his spine. "Who sent you?" she asked. Her tone hadn't changed. It was the same voice she used to ask Vincent if he wanted coffee. "I don't." The man sputtered into the carpet. "Wrong answer." She leaned forward. The man yelped as his shoulder joint screamed. Okay. Just some guy. At the docks. He said the place would be empty. He said DeLuca was out." Ariana frowned. "You broke in here on a rumor." She shifted her weight and drove her elbow into a nerve cluster on his neck, and the man went limp instantly. Unconscious. She stood up, smoothing the front of her uniform. She looked down at the unconscious man, then at the scuff mark his boot had left on the floor. "Of all the mansions in New York," she muttered, shaking her head. "You pick mine? Amateur." She picked up the gun by the barrel, checked the safety, and placed it on the desk. Then she went to the closet to get the vacuum cleaner. 2 hours later, Vincent DeLuca returned. He was tired, irritable, and smelling of cheap cigar smoke from the Irish meeting. He walked into the library and froze. There was a man duct-taped to his expensive leather office chair. The man was unconscious but breathing. A sticky note was attached to his forehead. It read, "Found this on the floor. Please dispose of properly. Ariana." Vincent stared. He looked at Lorenzo. Lorenzo looked at the man, then back at Vincent. Did the maid catch a hitman?" Lorenzo asked, his voice sounding incredibly small. Vincent rushed to his desk and pulled up the security feed. He keyed in the time code for the last 2 hours. He watched the playback. He saw the break-in. He saw Ariana on the balcony. He saw the jump, a 15-foot drop that she absorbed like it was nothing. And then he saw the fight. Vincent replayed it. 5 seconds. It had taken her 5 seconds to disarm and neutralize an armed assailant. The technique wasn't street fighting. It wasn't boxing. It was Krav Maga mixed with something else, something military, something classified. The efficiency of the movements was terrifying. No wasted energy. No hesitation. "Who the hell did I hire?" Vincent muttered, his blood running cold. He watched her on the screen, standing over the body, adjusting her uniform. She looked up at the camera, directly at the hidden lens inside the bookshelf that nobody was supposed to know about, and for a split second, her eyes seemed to bore right through the monitor and into Vincent's soul. His phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating against the mahogany. Vincent picked it up. It was a text from a blocked number. "You're not safe with her." Vincent looked from the phone to the screen, where Ariana was now calmly vacuuming the rug around the unconscious assassin. Suspicion twisted in his gut like a knife. He had brought a tiger into his house, thinking it was a house cat. "Lorenzo," Vincent said, his voice steady but dangerous. "Lock down the building. And bring her to me." The silence in the study was heavy, broken only by the ragged breathing of the unconscious man duct-taped to the chair. Vincent sat behind his desk, the glow of the monitors casting deep shadows across his face. He had replayed the footage 10 times. Every time, the result was the same. His maid, the woman who quietly organized his sock drawer, moving with the lethal efficiency of a government hit squad. "Lorenzo," Vincent said, his voice low. "Don't bring her here yet. If she suspects we know, and she is who I think she is, she could kill us all before we get a weapon drawn." Lorenzo nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "So what do we do?" "Fire her." "Fire her." Vincent let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You don't fire a woman who can snap a neck faster than she snaps a towel. You find out who sent her." Vincent turned his attention to the man in the chair. The intruder was beginning to stir, groaning as consciousness clawed its way back. Vincent stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked around the desk. He grabbed a pitcher of ice water from the side table and splashed it directly into the man's face. The intruder sputtered, thrashing against the duct tape. His eyes snapped open, wide with panic, until they landed on Vincent. "DeLuca," the man gasped. That's my name, Vincent said, leaning against the edge of the desk. And you are currently sitting in my favorite chair, bleeding on my upholstery. You have exactly 30 seconds to tell me who hired you before I let Lorenzo practice his golf swing on your kneecaps. I don't know names, the man stammered. It was a drop. Dead drop. Cash in a locker at Grand Central. The note just said, "Get the ledger from the safe." That's it. Vincent studied the man's face. He saw fear, stupidity, and greed. The trifecta of a low-level thug. This man wasn't a professional. He was a pawn. He was the kind of bottom feeder who would sell out anyone for a quick payday, the type who made the world a messier place simply by existing without a moral compass. Vincent looked at the man with pure disgust. In his world, there was honor among thieves, but this man had none. It reminded him of the rot that was slowly eating away at the city. People willing to do anything, hurt anyone, just to get ahead. You're pathetic, Vincent spat. You break into a man's home, threaten his staff, and you don't even dare to know who you're working for. He looked at Lorenzo. There are two types of people in this world, Lorenzo. Those who stand by a code and those who sell their souls for spare change. If you believe loyalty and honor still mean something in this world, hit that subscribe button right now. If you're the type of snake who'd sell out your own brother for a paycheck, keep scrolling. We don't want you here. Lorenzo grunted in agreement, cracking his knuckles. The world's full of rats, boss. Hit like if you want to see fewer of them. Vincent turned back to the intruder. Get him out of here. The basement. Make him talk. If he remembers anything, a smell, a voice, a phone number, I want to know. Lorenzo dragged the chair, intruder and all, out of the room. Vincent was alone again. He picked up his phone and dialed a number that didn't appear in any contact list. It rang once. Talk to me, a digitalized voice answered. I need a deep dive, Vincent said. Deeper than the standard background check. The name is Ariana Brooks. The social security number ends in 4589. I want to know who she was before she decided to become the best housekeeper in Manhattan. That will cost you double, Vincent. I don't care. Just find her. Vincent hung up and poured himself another whiskey. The message from the unknown number still burned on his phone screen. You're not safe with her. Suspicion twisted inside him like a knife. He paced the room, the ice clinking in his glass. He had spent 20 years building walls around his life, insulating himself with money and violence. He thought he was untouchable. But now, he realized he had invited a predator right into his living room, and he had even paid her a salary and benefits. 2 hours later, his computer pinged. A secure file transfer request appeared on the screen. The sender was anonymous. Vincent sat down, his heart hammering against his ribs, a sensation he hadn't felt since his first turf war. He clicked accept. The file was downloaded. It was heavy with redactions, black bars crossing out names, dates, and locations. But the photo on the first page was clear. It was Ariana. But she wasn't wearing a maid's uniform. She was wearing tactical gear, standing in a desert landscape, holding a sniper rifle with the same casual ease she used to hold a feather duster. Her hair was shorter, her eyes harder, but it was her. Vincent scrolled down. The name at the top wasn't Ariana Brooks. Subject: Kane. Ariana. Affiliation: Division 12. Vincent froze. Division 12 wasn't just a rumor. It was a ghost story. It was the agency the CIA called when they needed something done that was too dirty for the books. They were cleaners. Assassins. Ghosts. He read the dossier. Specialties: infiltration, CQC, close quarters combat, demolitions, espionage, service record, classified, mission log, classified. And then, at the very bottom of the page, stamped in bold red letters that seemed to scream off the screen, current status: deceased. Date of death: 5 years ago. Cause: Operation Blackout, classified. Vincent sat back, the air leaving his lungs. Ariana Brooks didn't exist. Ariana Kane was dead. And yet, the woman who was supposedly a corpse was currently sleeping in his guest quarters, or more likely, lying awake waiting for him to make a move. Deceased, Vincent whispered to the empty room. The realization hit him with the force of a freight train. She wasn't just a spy. She was a rogue agent. A ghost who had walked out of a grave and into his kitchen. And the text message. "You're not safe with her." It meant someone knew she was alive. It meant someone was hunting her. And by extension, they were hunting him. Vincent DeLuca had dealt with mob bosses, corrupt senators, and cartel leaders. He knew how to handle greed and ambition. But this was different. He was standing on the edge of a world he didn't understand. A world of spies and shadows where death was just a status update. He was shaken. The kind of shaken that made a grown mafia boss consider therapy. He looked at the time. 4 a.m. He couldn't wait. He couldn't sleep. He needed answers, and he needed them now. But he couldn't just storm in there. The video footage had made it very clear that trying to physically overpower her was a suicide mission. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a heavy chrome-plated pistol. He checked the chamber, clicked the safety off, and then, after a moment of hesitation, he put the safety back on. If she wanted him dead, he would have died weeks ago. She had access to his food, his drink, and his sleep. She hadn't killed him. That meant she needed him. Or she was waiting for something. Vincent stood up. He smoothed his suit jacket. He needed to be the king of New York, not the scared man watching videos in the dark. He walked out of the study and down the long, silent hallway toward the staff quarters. The house felt different now. Every shadow seemed to hide a secret. Every corner felt like an ambush. He reached her door. It was a simple wooden door, no different from any other, but to Vincent, it looked like the entrance to a lion's den. He didn't knock. He turned the handle slowly, pushing the door open. The room was empty. The bed was made, the sheets tight enough to bounce a quarter off. The closet door was open, revealing her uniforms hanging in perfect formation. But Ariana was gone. Panic flared in his chest. Had she run? Had she sensed he knew? "Looking for me, Mr. DeLuca?" The voice came from behind him. Vincent spun around, his hand instinctively going to the gun in his pocket. Ariana was standing at the end of the hallway, dressed in her uniform, holding a feather duster like a soldier holding a weapon. She watched him with those dark, unreadable eyes. She didn't look like a maid anymore. She looked like Ariana Kane, Division 12 operative, back from the dead. She froze when she saw the look on his face. She saw the tension in his jaw and the way his hand hovered near his pocket. She knew. "Close the door," Vincent said, his voice echoing in the hallway. She didn't move for a second. She calculated the distance, the angles, and the likelihood of him drawing the weapon before she could close the gap. Then she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes, sir." She walked past him into the room, her movement silent. Vincent followed her in and shut the door. The air in the small room was electric. "Sit," Vincent commanded, pointing to the small chair by the window. Ariana remained standing. "I prefer to stand." "I didn't ask what you prefer. I said sit." She blinked once. Slowly. Then gave a tiny, dry smile. "Good morning to you too, sir." "Ariana," he growled, his patience snapping. "Or whatever your real name is. Why are you in my house?" "I work here," she said simply. "I clean. I organize. I make excellent coffee." "Cut the act," Vincent roared, the sound startlingly loud in the small room. "I saw the video, Ariana. I saw what you did in the library. Normal maids don't flip grown men like pancakes." Ariana's expression didn't change, but her shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. The mask was slipping. "Some pancakes need flipping," she said softly. Vincent stared at her, incredulous. "You were a spy." "No," she corrected, her voice dropping an octave, losing the polite servant lilt. "I am a maid who used to have a very intense hobby." Despite himself, Vincent snorted. It was a hysterical sound. A hobby? Breaking bones is a hobby? What, was knitting too boring for you? She shrugged, a gesture that was far too casual for the situation. Better than knitting. Knitting gave me carpal tunnel. Snapping arms is surprisingly ergonomic. Vincent ran a hand through his hair. Who are you really? The file said you were dead. Deceased. 5 years ago. Ariana went very still. The humor vanished from her face instantly, replaced by something cold and sharp. You pulled my file. I have resources. You have no idea what you've just done, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Pulling that file. It triggers a flag. If you found me, they found me. Who are they? Ariana looked at him, and for the first time, Vincent saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for the situation. Someone is hunting me, Vincent. Someone who thinks I know something I shouldn't. A list of names. A ledger of dirty money that makes your empire look like a lemonade stand. And if they find me, they'll come for you too. Why me? Vincent demanded. I'm just a businessman. Because they think I'm hiding the ledger inside your empire, she said. They think you're my partner. Vincent exhaled. Loud. Like a man realizing he accidentally bought a tiger instead of a cat. So, Vincent said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. You're telling me that because I hired a maid with excellent references, I am now a target for a shadow government hit squad? Essentially, Ariana said. Yes. And the intruder last night? A scout. Testing the perimeter. Vincent paced the small room. You need to leave. No. Get out of my house. Ariana shook her head. I can't. If I leave, they kill you to tie up loose ends. As long as I'm here, you're leverage. If I run, you're just a witness. Vincent stopped pacing. He looked at her. The beautiful, deadly woman standing in his servants' quarters. So I'm trapped, he said. We both are, she replied. Before he could respond, a sharp crack echoed from the window. Glass shattered. Ariana tackled Vincent. She moved so fast he barely registered the movement, slamming into him and driving him to the floor behind the bed just as a bullet tore through the space where his head had been a second ago. Stay down, she hissed. Gunshots echoed outside, rapid and heavy. Automatic fire. Screams erupted from the main house. My men, Vincent gasped, trying to rise. Are you outmatched? Ariana pulled a gun from beneath the mattress. A matte black pistol that she clearly hadn't bought at Walmart. She racked the slide. She looked Vincent straight in the eye and said the words that twisted the entire situation on its head. They're not here for me, Vincent. Vincent's blood ran cold. What do you mean? The chatter I picked up last night, she said, crawling toward the door. The agent who wants me silenced. He works for a man who wants you dead. This isn't just a hit on a rogue spy. It's a hostile takeover. She stood up in a crouch, a dark silhouette against the broken window. You've been infiltrated, she said. And unfortunately for both of us, they found us. The mansion shook as an explosion detonated somewhere near the front gates. The battlefield had come to Vincent DeLuca's doorstep. But for the first time in his life, Vincent wasn't fighting alone. He had a spy maid. And judging by the look in her eyes, she was about to earn her paycheck. The hallway outside the staff quarters was a choke point of smoke and plaster dust. The explosion at the front gates had triggered the fire alarms, and the strobe lights flashed in a disorienting rhythm. Light, dark, turning the corridor into a fractured nightmare. Move, Ariana commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the ringing in Vincent's ears like a knife. Vincent DeLuca scrambled to his feet, clutching the pistol he'd pulled from his desk earlier. He was a man used to giving orders, not taking them, but as a spray of automatic gunfire chewed up the doorframe they had just exited, he decided now was an excellent time to delegate authority. The panic room is in the library, Vincent shouted over the wail of the sirens. Too far, Ariana retorted, moving down the hall in a low crouch. She held her weapon with a terrifying familiarity, scanning the corners. They came in through the front and the terrace. The library is a kill box. We need the garage. The garage is on the other side of the house. Then we'd better run fast. They reached the corner where the staff hallway intersected with the main foyer. Ariana threw out an arm, slamming it into Vincent's chest to stop him. "Wait," she hissed. Vincent peered around her shoulder. The grand foyer, usually the centerpiece of his empire with its marble floors and sweeping staircase, was a war zone. 3 men clad in tactical black gear, not police, not standard mob hitters, but military-grade operators, were sweeping the room. And lying on the floor near the front door was Lorenzo. Vincent's breath hitched. His consigliere was motionless, a pool of dark blood spreading beneath him on the white marble. "Lorenzo!" Vincent made a move to step out. Ariana grabbed his collar and yanked him back with surprising strength. "He's gone, Vincent. If you go out there, you join him." "They killed him," Vincent snarled, the grief instantly hardening into a cold white-hot rage. "They killed my brother." "Then live long enough to avenge him," Ariana said. She looked at him, her dark eyes intense. "Do you trust your security team?" "I pay them enough to trust them." "That's not what I asked." She gestured with her chin toward the far end of the foyer. Vincent looked. Standing near the open front doors was Paulie, his head of security. Paulie wasn't fighting. He was standing with the intruders, pointing toward the upper landing. He was directing them. The betrayal hit Vincent harder than a bullet. Paulie, who had eaten Sunday dinner at Vincent's table. Paulie, whose daughter's tuition Vincent paid. "That son of a bitch," Vincent whispered. "Hostile takeover," Ariana reminded him. "Someone bought your dog. Now are we fighting or dying?" "We're killing," Vincent said. "Good answer." Ariana didn't wait. She stepped out from the corner, raised her pistol and fired. It wasn't the spray and pray shooting Vincent was used to seeing street wars. It was surgical. Pop pop. One of the tactical operators dropped. Pop pop. The second one spun around, clutching his thigh, then his neck. The third operator and Paulie scrambled for cover behind the marble pillars. "Cover me!" Ariana yelled, sprinting across the open floor toward the kitchen entrance on the far side. Vincent stepped out, leveling his chrome-plated pistol. He wasn't a soldier, but he was a DeLuca. He fired 3 rounds at the pillar where Paulie was hiding, suppressing him. The loud boom of his heavy-caliber hand cannon echoed through the cavernous room. "Paulie!" Vincent roared. "You're a dead man. You hear me? I'll bury you in the foundation." "Nothing personal, boss," Paulie shouted back, firing a burst of machine gun fire that chipped the marble inches from Vincent's face. "Business is business." Vincent ducked back, shards of stone stinging his cheek. "I hate that cliché." Ariana had reached the kitchen door. She laid down suppressing fire, forcing the tactical team to keep their heads down. "Vincent!" "Now!" Vincent ran. He sprinted across the slippery marble, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Bullets snapped the air around him, buzzing like angry hornets. He dove through the kitchen doorway, landing hard on his shoulder and sliding across the tile. Ariana kicked the door shut and dragged a heavy prep table in front of it. "That won't hold them for long," she said, checking her magazine. 2 rounds left. "You." Vincent checked. 4. 6 bullets against a paramilitary strike team, she mused. "I've had worse odds." "When?" Vincent asked, getting to his feet and brushing flour off his Italian suit. "Budapest. 2018. Only had a stapler and a bottle of vodka." She looked at him. "Is there a service elevator in the pantry?" Vincent stared at her. "How do you know about the service elevator? That's not on the blueprints." "I measured the wall depth in the pantry 3 weeks ago. There was a 4-foot discrepancy. Either you had a very thick wall or a hidden shaft." Vincent shook his head. "You are terrifying." "Thank you. Open it." Vincent hurried to the back of the pantry, pushed aside a shelf of imported olive oil, and punched a code into a hidden keypad. The wall hissed and slid open to reveal a small, cramped elevator used for transporting wine from the cellar. "It goes to the garage," Vincent said. "Get in." They squeezed into the metal box. Vincent hit the button, and the doors slid shut just as the kitchen door exploded inward with a deafening crash. The elevator descended slowly. Too slow. So, Vincent said, the adrenaline making his hands shake slightly. You're a ghost agent. They think I'm your partner. And my head of security just sold me out. Succinct summary, Ariana said. She was reloading her magazine with loose rounds she pulled from her pocket. Who is the rival? The one who wants you dead. Could be anyone. The Russians. The Triads. But Polly has gambling debts. Big ones. Only one person buys debt like that in this city. Who? Julian Thorne. Ariana paused. Thorne. The hedge fund guy. He's not just a hedge fund guy. He's a money launderer who's been trying to buy my shipping routes for 5 years. I told him no. I guess he decided he didn't want to ask anymore. The elevator dinged. The doors opened into the subterranean garage, a pristine concrete expanse filled with luxury cars. Thorne, Ariana muttered. He's on the list. The ledger I'm hiding. Of course he is, Vincent groaned. Why make it simple? They ran toward Vincent's black Aston Martin. It was armored. Bulletproof glass, reinforced chassis, run-flat tires. I'm driving, Ariana said. The hell you are, Vincent snapped, opening the driver's side door. This is a $300,000 car. Nobody drives it but me. Can you do a J-turn at 60 miles an hour while taking fire? I can. Vincent hesitated. I can drive fast. Get in the passenger seat, DeLuca. Vincent growled but tossed her the keys. He slid into the passenger seat just as the elevator doors behind them pried open. 2 men spilled out raising rifles. Ariana slammed the car into gear. The engine roared, a guttural angry sound that reverberated off the concrete walls. She didn't reverse. She floored it, spinning the wheel. The car drifted beautifully, the rear bumper missing a concrete pillar by an inch, and she swung the nose around to face the exit ramp. Bullets pinged harmlessly off the reinforced glass. Nice glass, Ariana commented. German engineering, Vincent said, buckling his seatbelt. Don't scratch the paint. She gunned it. The car shot up the ramp like a missile. At the top of the ramp, the heavy iron gates were closing. Polly must have triggered the lockdown from the security booth. They're closing the gate. Vincent yelled. I see it. We're not going to fit. Not horizontally, Ariana said grimly. What does that mean? What does that mean, Ariana? Ariana didn't answer. She aimed the car not at the gap but at the rising concrete lip of the flower bed next to the gate. Ariana, no. She hit the incline at 70 miles an hour. The Aston Martin launched into the air. For a second there was weightlessness. Vincent saw the top of the iron gate pass beneath his window. He saw the night sky. He saw his life flash before his eyes, mostly involving expensive scotch and tailored suits. Then gravity took over. The car slammed down onto the asphalt of the street outside, sparks showering like fireworks as the chassis bottomed out. The suspension groaned but held. Ariana fought the wheel, correcting a fishtail, and straightened the car out, accelerating down the dark street. Vincent let out a breath he felt he'd been holding since Thursday. He looked back. The mansion was receding in the distance, smoke rising from the front entrance. He looked at Ariana. She was calm, hands at 10 and 2, checking the mirrors. You scratched the paint, Vincent said quietly. I saved your life, she replied. You used my flower bed as a ramp. It was an effective ramp. Vincent slumped back in the seat. He looked at his hands. They were steady now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by the cold, hard reality of his situation. He had lost his home. He had lost Lorenzo. He had lost his empire, at least for tonight. But he was alive. Where are we going? He asked. I have a safe house, Ariana said. Off the grid. Queens. Queens. Vincent looked horrified. I don't do Queens. You do today. Unless you prefer the morgue. Vincent sighed. He pulled out his phone to check for messages, but Ariana snatched it from his hand and tossed it out the window. Hey. They can track it, she said. We're ghosts now, Vincent. No phones, No credit cards. No contacts. Vincent watched his latest model smartphone bounce down the pavement in the rearview mirror. He felt stripped. Naked. "So what's the plan, spy girl?" he asked, looking at her profile. "We hide in a basement in Queens and eat canned beans until they find us?" Ariana glanced at him, a dangerous smirk playing on her lips. "No. We regroup. We rearm. And then we do what you do best. Which is, we declare war." Vincent looked at her, really looked at her. The maid who had folded his underwear was gone. In her place was a warrior who had just driven a car through the air. And for the first time since the intruder broke his window, Vincent smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who just realized he wasn't hunting alone. "I like the sound of that," Vincent said. "But first, tell me you didn't really organize my whiskey bottles alphabetically." "I did," she admitted. "It was chaos in there, Vincent. Absolute chaos." Vincent laughed. It was a dark, ragged sound, but it was real. They sped into the night, leaving the burning kingdom behind, ready to build a new one from the ashes of their enemies. The safe house in Queens was less of a house, and more of a structural depression sandwiched between a laundromat and a bodega that sold expired milk. Vincent stood in the center of the living room, staring at the peeling floral wallpaper with the expression of a man who had just been asked to eat his own shoes. The air smelled of stale cigarettes and damp drywall. "This," Vincent said, gesturing vaguely at a mustard-yellow sofa that looked like it harbored several new species of bacteria, "is where a top-tier government operative hides? It's off the books, paid for in cash, and the landlord is 80 years old and deaf," Ariana said, dropping a heavy duffel bag onto the linoleum floor. "It's perfect. Welcome to the glamorous life of espionage." "I miss my bidet," Vincent muttered, sinking gingerly onto a wooden chair that creaked in protest. "You'll survive." Ariana moved to the kitchenette, pulling a first aid kit from under the sink. "Take off your jacket. You're bleeding." Vincent looked down. He hadn't noticed, but a jagged tear in his suit sleeve was soaked in crimson. A graze from the shootout in the foyer. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache in his arm and a hollow cavern in his chest where the grief for Lorenzo was waiting to be felt. He hissed as Ariana cleaned the wound with rubbing alcohol. Her hands were steady, her touch surprisingly gentle despite the efficiency of her movements. "Paulie," Vincent said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. "He's been with me for 15 years. I paid for his wedding. I paid for his divorce. I paid for his kids' braces." "Greed doesn't have a memory, Vincent," Ariana said, applying a bandage. "Thorn probably offered him a way out of his debts and a slice of the kingdom. Some men build loyalty. Others just rent it." Vincent looked at the wall, his eyes cold. "I didn't just build an empire to have it parted out like a stolen car by a hedge fund manager and a trader." He looked directly at Ariana, then turned his gaze outward, breaking the fourth wall of his own misery. "That's the problem with the world today," Vincent muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "Everyone wants the prize, but nobody wants to pay the price. You have men like Paulie who smile in your face and sharpen the knife behind your back, and men like Thorn who think they can buy honor. If you're sick of the snakes, the fakes, and the people who trade loyalty for a quick buck, hit that subscribe button right now. If you believe a man's word should mean something, leave a comment saying loyalty first. Only the rats and the sellouts will scroll past this." Ariana finished taping the bandage. "You done philosophizing? Because we have work to do." Vincent flexed his arm. "I'm done. Now explain the ledger. Why does Thorn want it badly enough to burn down my house?" Ariana sat across from him, her posture perfect even on a rickety stool. Division 12 was investigating Thorn 5 years ago. He isn't just laundering money for the mob. He's brokering deals for state secrets, weapons, enriched uranium, you name it. If it's illegal and expensive, Thorn is the middleman. "And the ledger." "I was the infiltrator," Ariana said. "I got close. I got the file. But the extraction went wrong. My team was wiped out. Thorn had someone on the inside of the agency. I realized I couldn't trust Division 12, so I took the drive, the ledger, and I ran. I faked my death. And you hid the drive. Vincent trailed off, realization dawning on him. In your house, Ariana finished. Where? In the chandelier of the main foyer. Vincent stared at her. The chandelier? The one I imported from Venice? The one that costs more than this entire zip code? Nobody looks up, Vincent. It's human psychology. And nobody cleans that chandelier except me. Vincent rubbed his temples. Okay. So, the evidence that can destroy Thorn is currently hanging from the ceiling of a house that is likely swarming with his men. Correct. And Thorn thinks I have it. He thinks you're my handler. He thinks you've been protecting me this whole time. Vincent stood up and walked to the window, peering through the grime-coated blinds at the rainy street below. His mind was racing, shifting gears from victim to boss. He had lost his fortress, his right-hand man, and his security. But he still had his mind. And he had Ariana. Thorn is smart, Vincent said. But he's arrogant. He thinks he's won. He thinks I'm running scared. Aren't you? Vincent turned back to her, a dark smile playing on his lips. I was. But now I'm just offended. He ruined my Thursday. He broke my window. And he killed Lorenzo. He walked over to the duffel bag Ariana had dropped. He unzipped it. Inside were firearms, sleek, military-grade pistols, extra magazines, and flashbangs. You keep this under the sink? Vincent asked. A girl has to be prepared. Vincent picked up a heavy suppressor, weighing it in his hand. We can't go back to the mansion. It's a fortress now. Thorn will have locked it down. Agreed, Ariana said. So we need to draw him out. Or hit him where it hurts. Thorn is a narcissist, Vincent said. I know his type. He craves validation. Tomorrow night is the Metropolitan Gala. He's the keynote speaker. He'll be there, preening for the cameras, pretending he's a philanthropist while he washes blood money. Ariana's eyes lit up. Public venue. High security but lots of civilians. Chaos is easy to manufacture. We're not going to cause chaos, Vincent corrected, smoothing his torn suit jacket. We're going to crash the party. Thorn thinks I'm a thug? Fine. I'm going to walk right up to him in front of the city's elite and remind him who really runs New York. That's suicide, Ariana said, though she didn't look opposed to the idea. He'll have shooters everywhere. And I have a spy maid, Vincent countered. Can you get us in? I can get us into the Pentagon if I have 20 minutes and a pizza delivery uniform. The Met Gala is child's play. Good. Vincent reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy gold money clip. He peeled off a stack of bills, emergency cash he always kept on his person. First things first. We need new clothes. If I'm going to declare war, I'm not doing it in a ripped suit. Ariana stood up, a flicker of amusement crossing her face. You want to go shopping? Now. You said it yourself, Ariana. Appearances are everything. We walk in there looking like victims and we die. We walk in there looking like royalty, and they hesitate. And in that hesitation, Vincent racked the slide of the pistol he'd taken from the bag. We take them apart. Ariana grabbed a set of car keys from the counter. Keys to a nondescript sedan parked outside. Fine. But you're paying. I always pay, Vincent said grimly. But tomorrow night, Thorn is going to pick up the check. They moved to the door, leaving the depressing safety of the Queen's apartment behind. As they stepped out into the rain, the dynamic had shifted. They weren't master and servant anymore. They weren't even just allies. They were two predators who had been backed into a corner, and they were about to show the jungle exactly why they were at the top of the food chain. Vincent DeLuca was done running. It was time to go to work. The safe house in Queens was less of a house, and more of a structural depression sandwiched between a laundromat and a bodega that sold expired milk. Vincent stood in the center of the living room, staring at the peeling floral wallpaper with the expression of a man who had just been asked to eat his own shoes. The air smelled of stale cigarettes and damp drywall. This, Vincent said, gesturing vaguely at a mustard-yellow sofa that looked like it harbored several new species of bacteria. "Is where a top-tier government operative hides? It's off the books, paid for in cash, and the landlord is 80 years old and deaf," Ariana said, dropping a heavy duffel bag onto the linoleum floor. "It's perfect. Welcome to the glamorous life of espionage." "I miss my bidet," Vincent muttered, sinking gingerly onto a wooden chair that creaked in protest. "You'll survive." Ariana moved to the kitchenette, pulling a first aid kit from under the sink. "Take off your jacket. You're bleeding." Vincent looked down. He hadn't noticed, but a jagged tear in his suit sleeve was soaked in crimson. A graze from the shootout in the foyer. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache in his arm and a hollow cavern in his chest where the grief for Lorenzo was waiting to be felt. He hissed as Ariana cleaned the wound with rubbing alcohol. Her hands were steady, her touch surprisingly gentle despite the efficiency of her movements. "Paulie," Vincent said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. "He's been with me for 15 years. I paid for his wedding. I paid for his divorce. I paid for his kids' braces." "Greed doesn't have a memory, Vincent," Ariana said, applying a bandage. "Thorn probably offered him a way out of his debts and a slice of the kingdom. Some men build loyalty. Others just rent it." Vincent looked at the wall, his eyes cold. "I didn't just build an empire to have it parted out like a stolen car by a hedge fund manager and a trader." He looked directly at Ariana, then turned his gaze outward, breaking the fourth wall of his own misery. "That's the problem with the world today," Vincent muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "Everyone wants the prize, but nobody wants to pay the price. You have men like Paulie who smile in your face and sharpen the knife behind your back, and men like Thorn who think they can buy honor. If you're sick of the snakes, the fakes, and the people who trade loyalty for a quick buck, hit that subscribe button right now. If you believe a man's word should mean something, leave a comment saying, 'Loyalty first.' Only the rats and the sellouts will scroll past this." Ariana finished taping the bandage. "You done philosophizing? Because we have work to do." Vincent flexed his arm. "I'm done. Now explain the ledger. Why does Thorn want it badly enough to burn down my house?" Ariana sat across from him, her posture perfect even on a rickety stool. Division 12 was investigating Thorn 5 years ago. He isn't just laundering money for the mob. He's brokering deals for state secrets, weapons, enriched uranium, you name it. If it's illegal and expensive, Thorn is the middleman. "And the ledger. I was the infiltrator," Ariana said. "I got close. I got the file. But the extraction went wrong. My team was wiped out. Thorn had someone on the inside of the agency. I realized I couldn't trust Division 12, so I took the drive, the ledger, and I ran. I faked my death. And you hid the drive." Vincent trailed off, realization dawning on him. "In your house," Ariana finished. "Where?" "In the chandelier of the main foyer." Vincent stared at her. "The chandelier? The one I imported from Venice? The one that costs more than this entire zip code?" "Nobody looks up, Vincent. It's human psychology. And nobody cleans that chandelier except me." Vincent rubbed his temples. "Okay. So the evidence that can destroy Thorn is currently hanging from the ceiling of a house that is likely swarming with his men." "Correct. And Thorn thinks I have it. He thinks you're my handler. He thinks you've been protecting me this whole time." Vincent stood up and walked to the window, peering through the grime-coated blinds at the rainy street below. His mind was racing, shifting gears from victim to boss. He had lost his fortress, his right-hand man, and his security. But he still had his mind. And he had Ariana. "Thorn is smart," Vincent said. "But he's arrogant. He thinks he's won. He thinks I'm running scared. Aren't you?" Vincent turned back to her, a dark smile playing on his lips. "I was. But now I'm just offended. He ruined my Thursday. He broke my window. And he killed Lorenzo." He walked over to the duffel bag Ariana had dropped. He unzipped it. Inside were firearms, sleek, military-grade pistols, extra magazines, and flashbangs. You keep this under the sink? Vincent asked. A girl has to be prepared. Vincent picked up a heavy suppressor, weighing it in his hand. We can't go back to the mansion. It's a fortress now. Thorn will have locked it down. Agreed, Ariana said. So we need to draw him out. Or hit him where it hurts. Thorn is a narcissist, Vincent said. I know his type. He craves validation. Tomorrow night is the Metropolitan Gala. He's the keynote speaker. He'll be there, preening for the cameras, pretending he's a philanthropist while he washes blood money. Ariana's eyes lit up. Public venue. High security but lots of civilians. Chaos is easy to manufacture. We're not going to cause chaos, Vincent corrected, smoothing his torn suit jacket. We're going to crash the party. Thorn thinks I'm a thug? Fine. I'm going to walk right up to him in front of the city's elite and remind him who really runs New York. That's suicide, Ariana said, though she didn't look opposed to the idea. He'll have shooters everywhere. And I have a spy maid, Vincent countered. Can you get us in? I can get us into the Pentagon if I have 20 minutes and a pizza delivery uniform. The Met Gala is child's play. Good. Vincent reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy gold money clip. He peeled off a stack of bills, emergency cash he always kept on his person. First things first. We need new clothes. If I'm going to declare war, I'm not doing it in a ripped suit. Ariana stood up, a flicker of amusement crossing her face. You want to go shopping? Now. You said it yourself, Ariana. Appearances are everything. We walk in there looking like victims and we die. We walk in there looking like royalty, and they hesitate. And in that hesitation, Vincent racked the slide of the pistol he'd taken from the bag. We take them apart. Ariana grabbed a set of car keys from the counter. Keys to a nondescript sedan parked outside. Fine. But you're paying. I always pay, Vincent said grimly. But tomorrow night, Thorn is going to pick up the check. They moved to the door, leaving the depressing safety of the Queen's apartment behind. As they stepped out into the rain, the dynamic had shifted. They weren't master and servant anymore. They weren't even just allies. They were two predators who had been backed into a corner, and they were about to show the jungle exactly why they were at the top of the food chain. Vincent DeLuca was done running. It was time to go to work. The Metropolitan Gala was the kind of event where the champagne cost more than a teacher's annual salary, and the smiles were tighter than the facelifts. It was a sea of tuxedos, designer gowns, and diamonds large enough to have their own gravitational pull. At the center of it all, holding court near the eye sculpture, was Julian Thorn. He looked every inch the benevolent billionaire, silver fox hair, teeth capped to blinding perfection, and a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. He was laughing at a senator's joke, his hand resting casually on the shoulder of Polly, Vincent's former head of security. Polly looked uncomfortable in a tux, his eyes darting around the room like a dog waiting to be kicked. Thorn raised his glass. To the future of this city, he announced, his voice smooth as oiled silk. Clean, efficient, and profitable. A toast to the snakes. A deep voice cut through the applause. The room went quiet. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, not out of respect, but out of sheer primal confusion. Vincent DeLuca walked down the grand staircase. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't sneaking. He was making an entrance. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo that made him look like the personification of a bruised night sky. His face was battered, a cut on his cheek, a bruise on his jaw, but he wore the injuries like war paint. He looked dangerous. He looked alive. Beside him was a woman the city had never seen before. Ariana wore a gown of emerald silk that was backless, sleeveless, and slit high up the thigh. It was the kind of dress that could start a religion. Her hair was loose, cascading in dark waves, and her lips were painted a deep blood red. She didn't look like a maid. She looked like a queen who had just executed the king. Thorn's smile faltered. His glass lowered an inch. Vincent, Thorn said, recovering quickly. I heard you had a domestic accident involving a gas leak. I'm surprised to see you up and about. It takes more than a gas leak to kill a cockroach, Julian, Vincent said, stopping 10 feet away. And it takes more than a traitor to kill a DeLuca. Vincent's eyes flicked to Polly. The traitor flinched, taking a half step behind Thorne. You shouldn't be here, Vincent, Thorne said, his voice dropping to a menacing purr. You're trespassing. And you look terrible. I feel great, Vincent lied. He stepped closer, invading Thorne's personal space. The security guards tensed, hands moving inside their jackets. Ariana didn't move toward Thorne. She moved toward the guards. She picked a flute of champagne off a passing waiter's tray. She took a sip, her eyes scanning the 3 men flanking Thorne. She recognized the bulge of subcompact machine guns under their jackets. She recognized the earpieces. Gentlemen, Ariana said softly. The lead guard, a brute with a neck like a fire hydrant, sneered at her. Back off, lady. You have a loose thread, she said, reaching out. Before he could swat her hand away, she jammed the stem of the champagne flute into the pressure point between his thumb and index finger. He gasped, his hand flying open. In the same motion, she spun, the silk of her dress flaring, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He doubled over. The second guard reached for his weapon. Ariana grabbed the serving tray from the stunned waiter and slammed the edge of it into the guard's throat. He went down gagging. The third guard froze as he felt something sharp press against his femoral artery. Ariana was standing close to him, smiling for the cameras, a silver hors d'oeuvre fork pressed against his leg. Smile, she whispered. You're on page 6. The entire exchange had taken 4 seconds. The band hadn't even missed a beat. To the onlookers further back, it looked like the clumsy guards had simply tripped. Vincent didn't look back. He knew Ariana had handled it. He focused entirely on Thorne. You think you can buy my city, Julian? Vincent asked, his voice low enough that only Thorne and Polly could hear. You think you can buy my men? Kill my brother. Thorne scoffed, adjusting his cufflinks. The world is changing, Vincent. The old ways, honor, loyalty, the code, that's dead. It's all about the bottom line now. Polly understood that. He upgraded. You're still living in the past. Vincent looked at Thorne with pity. You know, there's a sickness in this city, Vincent said, looking past Thorne to the camera crews that were now zooming in on the confrontation. People who think a price tag is the same thing as value. People who think that because they have money they have class. But you can wrap a piece of garbage in silk, Julian, and it's still garbage. Vincent turned slightly, addressing the room, but his words were for the invisible audience beyond. If you're tired of the fakes, Vincent said, his voice carrying, if you're tired of the people who smile to your face while holding a dagger behind their back, hit that subscribe button. If you believe that loyalty is worth more than a paycheck, leave a comment saying, not for sale. Because men like Thorne, they think everyone has a price. Show them they're wrong. Thorne's face turned a blotchy red. Get him out of here, he hissed to his remaining security. But his security was currently groaning on the floor or paralyzed by a dessert fork. I'm leaving, Vincent said, straightening his cuffs. But I wanted to give you something first. Vincent reached into his pocket. Polly flinched again, reaching for a gun he didn't have. Vincent pulled out a single, slightly charred playing card. The King of Spades. He tucked it into Thorne's breast pocket. I'm not hiding anymore, Julian. I'm not running. You want the ledger? You want the empire? Come and get it. He turned to Ariana. We done. Ariana dropped the fork. She wiped her hands on a napkin. The floor is clean. Then let's go. They walked out the way they came, back up the grand staircase, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. That, Vincent said as he slammed the door of the sedan, was incredibly satisfying. Ariana peeled out of the parking lot, the tires screeching against the wet asphalt. And incredibly stupid. You just poked the bear, the hornet's nest, and the shark tank all at once. I needed him angry, Vincent said, tearing off his bow tie. Angry men make mistakes. Calculated men like Thorne? They're dangerous when they're calm. When they're emotional, they get sloppy. He's going to send everything he has, Ariana warned. He won't just send a strike team this time. He'll send an army. He knows we're alive and he knows we're defiant. Good, Vincent said. Because we're going back to the mansion. Ariana glanced at him, her eyebrows shooting up. Excuse me. The mansion that is currently a crime scene and likely under surveillance by both the police and Thorne's mercenaries. Thorne thinks I'm bluffing, Vincent said. He thinks I'm going to run to ground again. He thinks I'd never go back to the place he just burned. And he's right about the running part. But he's wrong about the destination. We need that ledger, Ariana. If we want to end this, we need the drive from the chandelier. It's suicide. It's a heist, Vincent corrected. And I have a spy maid. You said you could infiltrate the Pentagon with a pizza box. Can you break into my own house? Ariana sighed, a small smile touching her lips. I suppose I do have a set of keys. The drive back to the mansion was tense. They parked a mile away, ditching the car in a wooded area near the estate's perimeter. The rain had picked up, turning the night into a blur of gray and black. They moved through the woods on foot. Ariana took point, moving with a silence that made Vincent feel like a clumsy giant. She bypassed the perimeter sensors. Sensors Vincent had paid a fortune for, with embarrassing ease, using a small magnetic device to loop the signal. Remind me to ask for a refund on this security system, Vincent whispered as they slipped through a hole in the fence. The system is fine, Ariana whispered back. I'm just better. The mansion loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. The windows were boarded up where the blast had blown them out. Yellow police tape fluttered in the wind, but the police were gone. In their place were private security contractors, Thorne's men. They were patrolling the grounds with dogs. Dogs, Vincent hissed. I hate dogs. They're Belgian Malinois, Ariana noted. Highly trained. But they have a weakness. Stay. High-frequency sound. She pulled a small device from her clutch, the same clutch she'd carried at the gala. Cover your ears. She pressed a button. No sound came out that Vincent could hear, but across the lawn, 3 dogs simultaneously whined, pawed at their ears, and dragged their confused handlers toward the gate, barking at nothing. The chaotic method, Vincent noted. Distraction. Ariana corrected. Move. They sprinted across the lawn, keeping to the shadows of the hedges. They reached the side of the house. Near the kitchen entrance they had fled 24 hours ago. The door was boarded up. Roof. Ariana signaled. She scaled the trellis like a spider. Vincent followed, groaning as his bruised ribs protested. They shimmied along the gutter and slipped into an open window on the 3rd floor. They were in. The house smelled of smoke and damp ash. It was eerie, walking through the halls of his own kingdom, now a graveyard of broken furniture and shattered glass. They reached the balcony overlooking the grand foyer. Below them, the foyer was dimly lit by work lights. Thorne's men were there. 4 of them. They were sweeping up debris, but mostly they were standing around guarding the front door. And there, hanging above them in the gloom, was the chandelier. A massive, crystal monstrosity that had survived the explosion miraculously intact. It's right there, Vincent whispered. In the center stem. We can't reach it from here, Ariana said. We need to lower it. The winch control is in the utility closet downstairs, right next to those 4 guys with assault rifles. Ariana analyzed the room. I can take 2. You take 2. I'm a businessman, Ariana, not John Wick. You did okay at the gala. That was posturing. This is combat. Ariana looked around. Her eyes landed on a service cart left by the cleanup crew. It was loaded with buckets of paint and thinner. Okay, she said. We don't shoot them. We clean them up. What? I'm the maid, she said, tying her hair back with a strip of cloth torn from her dress. Let me do my job. She disappeared into the shadows of the upper hallway. Vincent watched from the balcony. A moment later, a bucket of white paint plummeted from the opposite side of the balcony. It hit the marble floor with a wet explosion, splashing 2 of the guards. What the hell? one shouted, wiping paint from his visor. They looked up. "Hey!" another yelled. "Up there." All 4 guards raised their weapons toward the spot where the bucket had fallen. That was when Ariana dropped the second bucket, this one filled with paint thinner, directly onto the work lights. The bulbs shattered. The sparks ignited the fumes. Whoosh! A wall of fire erupted between the guards and the stairs, creating panic. The halon fire suppression system triggered instantly, filling the room with a thick white fog that reduced visibility to 0. "Now!" Ariana's voice echoed from the fog. Vincent didn't hesitate. He ran to the utility closet in the confusion. The guards were shouting, coughing, and firing blindly into the ceiling. Vincent found the panel. He cranked the winch release. With a groan of metal, the massive crystal chandelier began to descend. It dropped fast. Vincent ran out of the closet just as the chandelier crashed onto the marble floor, not gently, but with a deafening shatter of crystal that sounded like 1,000 bells dying at once. He scrambled through the fog and glass. He found the center stem. It was twisted, but the hollow compartment was there. He jammed his fingers in, fishing around. "Vincent!" Ariana shouted. She was on the floor level now, engaging a guard in hand-to-hand combat within the smoke. Vincent's fingers brushed cold metal. He grabbed it. A small, silver USB drive. "Got it!" he yelled. "Go. Kitchen." Vincent turned to run, but a figure loomed out of the white mist. It was Polly. He was holding a shotgun. His face was pale, sweaty, and desperate. "I can't let you leave, boss," Polly said, his voice shaking. "Thorn. He'll kill me." Vincent stopped. He held the drive in one hand and his gun in the other. He looked at the man he had treated like a brother. "He's going to kill you anyway, Polly," Vincent said softly. "Men like Thorn don't leave loose ends." "I have to try." Polly raised the shotgun. Vincent didn't want to do it. Every instinct in his body screamed against it. This was family. Or it had been. But then he remembered Lorenzo. He remembered the blood on the floor. "I'm sorry, Polly," Vincent said. Polly tightened his finger on the trigger. Bang. Polly dropped. Vincent hadn't fired. He looked behind Polly. Ariana stood there, her gun smoking. She had emerged from the fog like a vengeful spirit. She didn't look at the body. She looked at Vincent. "We have to go," she said. "Reinforcements are 2 minutes out." Vincent looked down at Polly one last time, then stepped over him. They ran into the night, the drive burning a hole in Vincent's pocket. They had the evidence. They had the weapon to destroy Thorn. But as they sprinted back toward the woods, Vincent knew the hardest part wasn't over. Getting the truth was one thing. Surviving long enough to tell it was another. And Thorn wasn't just going to send mercenaries anymore. He was going to burn the whole city down to get them. Vincent checked his weapon. Empty. He looked at Ariana. She was limping slightly, blood soaking the hem of her ruined emerald dress. "You okay?" he asked. "I broke a heel," she said, kicking off her shoes and continuing barefoot through the mud. "And I really liked these shoes." "I'll buy you a shoe factory," Vincent promised. "Just buy me ammo," she replied. "Lots of it." The rain had turned the dirt path leading back to their car into a slip and slide of mud and decaying leaves. Vincent DeLuca, a man who owned suits worth more than most mid-sized sedans, was currently covered in muck up to his knees. Ariana was ahead of him, barefoot, moving with a grim determination that ignored the jagged rocks and cold earth. She reached the nondescript sedan they'd left hidden in the brush, yanked the door open, and slid into the driver's seat. "I'm driving," she barked as Vincent scrambled into the passenger side. "I paid for the car," Vincent panted, slamming the door shut. "And I'm the one who didn't just have an emotional breakdown over shooting my head of security. Buckle up." Vincent didn't argue. He buckled. His hands were shaking, just slightly. It wasn't fear. Vincent DeLuca didn't do fear, but the image of Polly falling backward into the fog was burned into his retinas. Betrayal had a bitter aftertaste, worse than cheap scotch. Ariana keyed the ignition. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. She didn't turn on the headlights. She reversed blindly out of the brush, spinning the wheel with one hand, and guided the car onto the main road using only the ambient light of the moon and her own terrifying intuition. "Where are we going?" Vincent asked, wiping mud from his face with a silk pocket square that was now ruined. "The Queen's safe house." "Compromised," Ariana said, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "Thorn knows we have the drive. He knows we escaped. He'll have every mercenary, dirty cop, and assassin in the tri-state area looking for a black sedan and a couple looking like they just crawled out of a swamp." She turned on the radio. Reports of a terrorist attack at the DeLuca estate following a violent disturbance at the Metropolitan Gala, the news anchor's voice crackled. "Police are seeking Vincent DeLuca in connection with the murder of his own security chief and multiple counts of arson. Authorities warn he is armed and extremely dangerous." Vincent let out a dark, humorless laugh. "He works fast. Am I a terrorist now? Yesterday I was just a controversial businessman." He looked out the window at the blurring city lights. "It's amazing, isn't it? How quickly the truth gets buried under a pile of money. Thorn spins a story, and suddenly the victim is the villain." Vincent looked at the dashboard, his expression hardening. "That's the world we live in. The truth doesn't matter, only the narrative does. If you're sick of being told what to think by people who are paid to lie to you, hit that subscribe button. If you want to see the real story, the one they don't put on the news, leave a comment saying, 'Eyes open.' Because if you're not questioning the narrative, you're just part of the audience." Ariana switched off the radio. "Save the speech for the victory lap, Vincent. We need a place with high-speed internet, zero surveillance, and fortified walls. And we needed it 10 minutes ago." Vincent looked at the USB drive clutched in his muddy hand. "I know a place." "Where?" "The Spire," Vincent said. "My construction project in Midtown. It's 80 stories of steel and concrete. The top floors aren't finished, but the server room for the building's smart grid is active. It has a satellite uplink independent of the city grid." Ariana nodded. "Construction site. High ground. Defensible. I like it." The Spire was a skeleton of steel piercing the Manhattan skyline, a monument to Vincent's ambition that was currently wrapped in scaffolding and orange safety netting. They ditched the car 3 blocks away and moved through the alleys. They entered through a service hatch in the hoarding that Vincent unlocked with a keypad code only he knew. The interior was a cathedral of raw concrete and exposed girders. The wind howled through the open windows, whistling a lonely tune. They took the construction elevator, a rattling metal cage, up to the 75th floor. The server room was a glass-walled fortress in the center of the unfinished floor. Vincent scanned his palm on the reader. The door hissed open. Inside, it was cool, quiet, and humming with the blue light of server racks. It was the brain of a building that wasn't yet alive. "Plug it in," Ariana commanded, limping toward the main terminal. She shoved a rolling chair toward the console and sat down, her fingers flying across the keyboard before she even touched the mouse. Vincent inserted the USB drive. A red skull appeared on the main monitor. "Access denied. Biometric key required." "It's encrypted," Ariana muttered. "Not standard military encryption either. This is chaotic. It's Thorn's personal coding." "Can you crack it?" "I can crack anything given enough time. But this." She pointed to a countdown timer that had appeared below the skull. 1,500 hours. 14:59. What happens in 15 minutes? Vincent asked. "It wipes itself," Ariana said. "It's a dead man's switch. If we don't input the decryption key, the data burns. We lose the evidence. We lose Thorn. So we guess the password." "No. It's biometric. It needs a retinal scan or a fingerprint." Vincent paced the small room. "Thorn is across town. We can't get his eyeball in 15 minutes unless we have a very fast drone and a very sharp spoon." Ariana stopped typing. She stared at the screen. "Wait. The coding. It has a backdoor." "A backdoor." "Thorn is paranoid," Ariana explained, her eyes narrowing. He wouldn't trust himself not to forget access. He built a failsafe. It's linked to a remote server. If I can trace the signal, I can trick the drive into thinking it's connected to Thorne's personal network. Do it. I am doing it. But Vincent. She paused, looking up at him. Tracing the signal works both ways. As soon as I ping his server, he's going to know exactly where we are. Vincent looked at the countdown. 12:30. He looked at the unfinished walls of his tower. He looked at the vast, sprawling city below, a city he used to run, a city that was currently hunting him. Let him come, Vincent said quietly. Ariana raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. We're done running, Ariana. We're done hiding in basements and crawling through mud. Vincent walked to the wall where a fire axe was mounted in a glass case. He smashed the glass with his elbow and took the axe. Its weight felt good in his hands. Heavy. Real. You said he'd send an army, Vincent said. This building is a fortress. There's only one way up, the elevator we just took. The stairs are unfinished on the lower levels. He has helicopters. And I have a spy maid who can shoot a fly off a mule's ear at 300 yards, Vincent countered. Hack the drive, Ariana. Bring him here. Let's end this tonight. Ariana looked at him. She saw the blood on his face, the ruin of his tuxedo, and the cold, terrifying fire in his blue eyes. He wasn't a businessman anymore. He was a warlord. A slow smile spread across her face. You're crazy, she said. I'm a DeLuca, he replied. Ariana turned back to the screen. She cracked her knuckles. Sending the ping. You have company in T-10 minutes. The waiting was the hardest part. Vincent stood by the edge of the floor, where the glass walls hadn't been installed yet. The wind whipped at his clothes. He watched the city. Far below, he saw them coming. It started with a swarm of black SUVs converging on the construction site like ants on a dropped lollipop. Then came the police cruisers, their lights flashing silently from this height. They're here, Vincent called out. I'm at 40% decryption, Ariana shouted back from the server room. I need time. You'll get it. Vincent walked to the construction elevator controls. He pulled a lever, locking the cage on the ground floor. Then he smashed the control panel with the axe. Elevator is out, he muttered. They're climbing. A low thumping sound vibrated in his chest. He looked up. A helicopter. Black, unmarked banking around the side of the building. A spotlight blinded him. Air support. Vincent yelled, diving behind a pallet of concrete bags as bullets chewed up the floor where he had been standing. Ariana didn't flinch. She kept typing. Don't let them breach the server room, Vincent. If they disconnect the terminal, the data will be corrupted. Vincent grabbed the assault rifle he'd taken from one of the guards at the mansion. He'd had the foresight to bring it, even if it only had one magazine left. He leaned out from behind the concrete. The helicopter was hovering, a man leaning out the side door with a rifle. Amateur, Vincent muttered, echoing Ariana's words from the night they met. He aimed. He didn't shoot at the gunman. He shot at the tail rotor. He missed. Damn it. The helicopter swung around for another pass. Ariana. I could use some of that spy magic right now. I'm busy hacking $1 billion of illegal transactions. She yelled. Use the crane. The what? The crane. The remote is on the belt of the foreman's vest over there. Vincent looked. Hanging on a hook near the stairwell was a high-vis vest. Clipped to it was a bulky industrial remote control. Vincent sprinted for it. Bullets sparked off the steel girders around him. He grabbed the remote and dove back into cover. He looked at the controls. Left. Right. Winch down. He looked at the massive tower crane sitting atop the building, its long arm extending out over the void, right where the helicopter was hovering. Let's play, Vincent growled. He slammed the joystick to the left. The massive steel arm of the crane swung with a groan of gears. The helicopter pilot, focused on Vincent, didn't see the multi-ton steel hook swinging toward him until it was too late. The hook slammed into the side of the helicopter. The aircraft spun violently, smoke pouring from the engine. The pilot fought for control, banking hard away from the building and retreating into the night sky. One down. Vincent yelled. 70%. Ariana called out. But the ground team is in the building. I picked up their comms. They're coming up the stairwell. They're breaching the fire doors. Vincent ran to the stairwell entrance. It was a narrow concrete choke point. He checked his ammo. 3 rounds. He threw the rifle down and hefted the fire axe. "Come on, you bastards," he whispered. The door burst open. A tactical team poured out. Flashlights blinding, lasers sweeping. Vincent didn't fight them head-on. He retreated into the maze of construction materials. Stacks of drywall, pallets of pipes, and rolls of insulation. He became a shadow. The first man passed a stack of drywall. Vincent swung the flat of the axe, slamming it into the man's helmet. He went down. Vincent grabbed the man's sidearm and faded back into the dark. Bang! Bang! 2 more went down. But there were too many. They pushed forward, a relentless tide of black armor. They surrounded the server room. Vincent was pinned down behind a forklift. He was out of ammo. Again. "Ariana," he shouted. "Time. 98%. The glass wall of the server room shattered as bullets raked across it. Ariana ducked under the console, dragging the keyboard with her. "Give it up, DeLuca." A voice boomed over a loudspeaker. Thorne walked onto the floor. He wasn't wearing a tux anymore. He was wearing a Kevlar vest over a cashmere sweater. He looked annoyed. "It's over," Thorne said, stepping over the debris. "You put up a good fight. Surprisingly good. But you're just a thug in a suit, Vincent. You're obsolete." Thorne gestured to his men. "Kill him. And bring me the girl." The soldiers raised their weapons. Vincent looked at the server room. He looked at Ariana. The screen behind her flashed green. Decryption complete. Upload initiated. Ariana stood up. She wasn't holding a gun. She was holding a phone, Vincent's old burner phone she'd salvaged from the bag. "Actually," Ariana said, her voice projecting clearly across the silent floor, "it's just beginning." She pressed a button on the phone. Suddenly, the massive digital billboards in Times Square, visible through the open skeleton of the building, flickered. Every screen in the city, from the giant displays in Midtown to the TVs in the sports bars below, changed. Thorne's face appeared. Not the polished billionaire, but a grainy video of him shaking hands with a known warlord. A video of him ordering the hit on a senator. A list of bank accounts funding terrorism. The ledger was scrolling live for 8 million people to see. Thorne froze. He looked out the window. He saw his own face, 50 feet tall, confessing to treason on the side of a skyscraper. "What did you do?" Thorne whispered. "I cleaned house," Ariana said. Sirens wailed from every direction. Not for Vincent. For Thorne. Thorne's face twisted. He pulled a gun from his waistband, aiming it directly at Ariana. "If I go down, you're coming with me." Vincent moved. He didn't have a gun. He didn't have the axe. He had the only thing left. He tackled Thorne. They hit the ground hard, rolling toward the edge of the unfinished floor. Thorne fired wildly, the bullet shattering a server rack. They grappled, punching and clawing. Thorne was strong, desperate, and fueled by the rage of a man who had lost everything in 10 seconds. But Vincent was fighting for something else. He was fighting for Lorenzo. For his city. For the woman standing barefoot in the glass. They rolled to the lip of the floor. A sheer drop, 80 stories down. Thorne kicked Vincent off, scrambling to his feet. He aimed the gun at Vincent's head. "Goodbye, King," Thorne snarled. Click. Ariana was there. She had the gun she'd taken from the unconscious guard. The barrel was pressed against the back of Thorne's head. "Drop it," she said, "or I paint the town with your brains." Thorne froze. He dropped the gun. Vincent stood up, wiping blood from his mouth. He looked at Thorne, then at the city below, where the police lights were now converging on the building entrance. "You're right, Julian," Vincent said, breathing hard. "The old ways are dead. But some things never go out of style. Vincent punched him. A solid, clean right hook that knocked Thorne out cold. He turned to Ariana. She lowered her gun. She looked exhausted, bruised, and covered in dust. And she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Did we win?" she asked. Vincent looked at the giant screen outside, where Thorne's crimes were still looping. "Yeah," Vincent said. "We won." He walked over to her. He didn't say anything. He just wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a hug that held the weight of the entire night. Ariana hesitated for a second, then melted into him, resting her head on his ruined shoulder. "You're fired," Vincent whispered into her hair. Ariana pulled back, confused. "What?" "As a maid," Vincent said, a genuine smile breaking through the grime on his face. "You're terrible at it. You break everything. I saved your life." "I'm promoting you," Vincent said. "Partner." Ariana looked at him. She looked at the unconscious billionaire, the flashing lights, and the city that never slept. "Partner," she agreed. "But I'm still not doing windows." Vincent laughed. And as the SWAT team burst onto the floor, shouting commands, Vincent DeLuca and Ariana Kane stood side by side, hands raised, smiling like they owned the world. Because, in a way, they finally did.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out.